Hey, chiropractor, and I'm speaking to you. I want you to stand up and I want you to tell the truth. Now, what truth am I talking about? I want you to tell the truth that chiropractic changes lives. That as chiropractors, we see miracles. Now, probably the best explanation of why we do is our chiropractic philosophy, that life comes from above, down, inside out, that my nervous system relates me to my environment, and that if I get there in time, and if I find the subluxation, and if I correct the subluxation, I'm going to see miracles. Well, as evidenced by what? Well, I've said this so many times. I truly believe it's the truth. We love our philosophy, but our philosophy never looked better than when it's lived out in the lives of our patients. I was sitting at a table with a chiropractor, and he was telling me his story, how as a teenage athlete, he had been injured and that he had suffered a type of paralysis where he couldn't move. In fact, he was even casted in a more normal position, but he was paralyzed. And his girlfriend, her family was a chiropractic family. They went to the chiropractor and they brought this young man, this young teen, to the chiropractor, and he got a chiropractic adjustment. And that chiropractic adjustment changed his life. He was no longer casted. He returned to 100% function. Now, I heard that story, and I came back to my new patient orientation class, and you know what I did? I told that story. And I had no idea what would happen. And someone told that story to a young man named John, who had been in a terrible accident, a rollover accident, in a convertible on a country road, and he'd broken his neck. And he was a quadriplegic. And he rolled in to my exam room, and I thought, what in the world am I going to do now? And I just remembered something. If I get there in time, well, it's obviously too late. Well, was it? If I can find the subluxation, I mean, this was a neck fracture, a quadriplegic. And if I correct the subluxation, I will see miracles. Not every time, but if we do that consistently, and if that's our story, we are going to see miracles. So I told him I didn't know what I could do. I told him that maybe the nerve tissue is dead, but let's go to work. Let's see what we can do. So I started to adjust him. His attendant would bring him in, put him on the table. I would come in, adjust, go out. The attendant would turn him in a different position. I would come back in, adjust him again. And so this went on for some time. I said, let's try for 6 weeks to see if we can get any change at all. Now, I came in one time and he was sitting in his wheelchair. He wasn't on the table and the light was off. And so I said, what's going on? And I turned on the light and he put his hand up and turned off the light. I said, when did this happen? And he said, well, he just had noticed some things in his shoulders and he could get some lateral raising from his shoulders. Now, fast forward a few months later, and I was at my front desk and somebody said, Dr. Lloyd, I want you to stand here. I said, well, I've got people to take care of. And somebody from the reception area said, Dr. Lloyd, stand there. Oh, I didn't know what was going on. So I looked out onto the parking lot because that's where the attention was. And what had happened is that we got word that John was going to, with special controls, still technically a quadriplegic, he was going to be able to drive up his own van with special controls and attachments to the steering and to the brakes and to the gas and all that. And he pulled his car in without his attendant. And because of the way that his van was constructed, was able to get out of his van and actually come into the office. And you know what? I told that story again and again and again. I told that story to a young associate of mine. His name was Andy. He was taking care of a young woman who was a foster parent for a little failure to thrive baby. Her name was Barbara. Barbara broke down in tears one time while getting adjusted and told Andy about this failure to thrive baby, that it was probably going to be a hospice situation where the baby was going to actually die under her care. And they tried to feed the baby, but it was like they were pouring hot lead down the baby when they just put solid food in her, because the baby would just go into these terrible convulsions. It took 2 people to feed a baby because of how she spit and screamed and yelled and just had a fit. And so we got permission from the state, because she was a ward of the state, born to a developmentally disabled, drug-addicted young woman, in Barbara's care. And we adjusted that little one, because my associate said, you know what? Life comes from above down, inside out. If we get there in time, if we find the subluxation, if we can correct the subluxation, maybe we'll see a miracle. And so that little one got the double thumb, mid-thoracic adjustment, audible, palpable, screamed like a banshee when she got her first adjustment. And we got a call later that night when all my associates were gathered with me. And Andy looked at me and he says, Michelle ate. Now, Michelle's not a real name. She ate. Great. We got a call on Wednesday after her next adjustment. She ate like a pig. This little one grew up in my office. And what I mean by that is that because somebody told the story, somebody said, life comes from above down, inside out. Because one of my kindest, most wonderful associates, who was also a little bit meek, just a little bit shy, told the story at the right time, because life comes from above down, inside out. If we get there in time, if we find the subluxation, that we make the correction, we can see miracles. It wasn't too much longer that little one was running around my office in a party dress with patent leather shoes and ruffles on her socks and bows in her hair. And I said, hey, come to me. And she jumped into my arms, and I walked right over to Barb, her foster mother, and she said, you know why she's dressed up today? I said, no, I don't. Party? She said, well, sort of. She gets adopted today. You know, isn't that a great story? That's a great story that's worth telling. You have miraculous stories that happen in your practice. I know you do. And sometimes we kind of think, well, people will think we're crazy. And I have such a great musculoskeletal practice. And by the way, I love musculoskeletal cases, but I want you to tell the life-changing stories that impact so many people. It's my experience. I don't know that this is true, but nobody shows up in a chiropractic office unless they've heard a good story. I want you to be courageous. I want you to stand up. I want you to tell the truth. It's one of the best things that you can do for chiropractic. It's one of the best things that you can do for yourself. It puts you in alignment with what you know to be true and what helps so many people. So please, you, chiropractor, tell the truth.